Thank you very much. And Chairman Bernanke, thank you so much for being here. I've been back in my office listening to most of this on television. I appreciate the fact that you have talked about fiscal policy as well as monetary policy and the overall economy. You note that your forecast is lower than it was back in January. And you say that you now forecast that we'll have over 7% unemployment on through the end of 2014. This, I think we'll all agree, this is not the kind of economic growth that we need and that Americans have had in the past. If taxes are raised on individuals making over $250,000, many of whom are small business people, many of whom are job creators, what effect will that have on the projection that you have in your written testimony?
Well, I haven't done that specific, we haven't done that specific exercise. I've been focusing on the overall size of the fiscal shock that includes the expiration of all the 2001, 2003 tax cuts, as well as the end of the payroll tax cut, UI payments, and the sequestration. You put all those things together, and you get a shock which is about 4.5% of GDP.
Okay, but the President came out and reiterated last week his request that we simply raise taxes on $250,000 and above. I think you'll agree that in terms of the federal deficit, that's a relatively small amount. That would be a tax on job creators and would make your numbers worse, wouldn't it?
It could, if it reduced incentives and if it reduced aggregate demand, both of those channels. But as often is the case in tax policy, you've got efficiency and growth concerns, and you've also got equity concerns, and all those things feed into tax decisions.
I realize it's hard to predict with certainty, and I think we've seen that over time. But I would simply suggest to you that you're correct in saying that it could have an adverse effect. Let me ask you about the fiscal shock. I think we got to do something on the spending side, and I know what you're saying. The economy is fragile, and you don't want it to happen quite so quickly. Senator Kyle and Senator McCain came up with a proposal to deal with sequestration. And let me just ask you, it went over like a lead balloon, but let me go back to it and ask you what your general impression is of the proposal. It would have saved, rather, $127 billion in spending by simply doing two things. Number one, freezing federal pay for federal workers until June of 2014. That would be the first thing. The second thing would have been a 5% reduction in the federal workforce, not a 5% reduction in federal spending, but a 5% reduction in federal workforce by hiring only 2 workers to replace every 3 that are leaving through attrition. Now, and this reduction would have taken up to 10 years to achieve. That's not the sort of thing that you view it as a fiscal shock, is it? We could absorb that type of modest spending reduction in order to save us from the meat axe approach of sequestration at the end of this year.
Well, again, without endorsing the specific program, you know, a spending program that comes in more gradually over a period of time, but also is tied to a plan, a credible plan to achieve fiscal sustainability in the medium term, would be, it's what I'm recommending, this would be something that would avoid this very, very sharp change in the government's fiscal position, you know, on one day, on January 1st, 2013.
Right. Let me see if I can squeeze in one more thing. You know, about unemployment rates, unacceptably high, and you've predicted now 7% or more by the end of 2014. In January of 2002, unemployment rate 5.7. October of 2003, unemployment rate 6%. By October of 2004, down to 5.5%. Boy, wouldn't we love to see that kind of unemployment rate now in the United States of America. Down to 4.9% by August of 2005, 4.4% unemployment rate. These are actual figures by October of 2006. As late as May of 2007, unemployment rate of 4.4%. And then, of course, by the end of 2008, it's up to 7.3%. We hear a lot of discussion and a lot of warnings by people in this city about not going back to those disastrous policies that got us into the situation we're in the first place. The fact is we had relatively low and a relatively acceptable unemployment rate for much of the decade until 2008. And we had real GDP growth in 2006, 2007, and 2008. Isn't that correct?
Until the end of 2008, yes.
Now, what happened in 2008? Was it tax cuts for the rich?
No, we had a major financial crisis, as you know, and it created a global recession.
Right.
Very deep one.
Right. Thank you very much.
Senator